Okay, so my name's Brian. I work with KIT here in Jonesboro, Arkansas. We are fascinated with the Artemis mission, the
Pat.
Artemis missions. We know there's multiple,
That's right.
but the one we're looking forward to in just a few days, Artemis 2. Um, this is a historic moment. This is the first time, um, in 50 plus years, humankind has been in the vicinity of the moon. So, and before we get started with the interview, just tell me your first and last name, spell it out for me, and your title.
Sure. My name is Barbara Cohen, Barbaracohen. I'm a planetary scientist at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, and I'm one of the Artemis Project's scientists.
Awesome, and it's a pleasure as a science geek. Uh, it is a pleasure to be able to do this. So we're just days away from launch. We know they got pushed back a couple of times, but where are we now as we're leading up to the launch of Artemis 2?
Next week is our next launch opportunity for Artemis 2 starting April 1st. So we've had a couple wet dress rehearsals, some lessons learned to get us here since February. So we're all fingers crossed that we'll be able to launch next week. Artemis 2, of course, is our next test flight. We had Artemis 1 3 years ago. That was the test for the rocket, the Space Launch System, and the Orion crew capsule. Artemis 2 will build on that knowledge. We don't have to test the rocket anymore. We don't have to test the capsule. What we're testing now is the life support systems and how crew are going to live and work in the Orion capsule, and how we're going to use that capsule to be able to dock with future landers. So what we'll ask the crew to do after they launch, they'll be in Earth orbit. They're going to test out all their systems, make sure everything works, make sure things like the toilet work, things like that, that they need to be able to live and work in space for the next 10 days. Then they're going to do what we call proximity operations, which is maneuvering the Orion capsule close to its own hardware. They're not going to do any docking, but what they're doing is understanding how they will be doing docking in future missions. So that's taking a lot of the risk or the testing out of those systems so that next time we go, we can say, yep, we did those things, we're confident in them, and we can start doing the new things. So if that's all okay, then they'll do what's called translunar injection. That takes them out of Earth orbit. As you said, this is going to take them farther away than any humans have ever been. In fact, farther even than the Apollo astronauts were. So we're taking our first woman and our first person of color beyond low Earth orbit. We're going to take them around to the far side of the moon. They're not going to be captured by the moon. They're still going to be captured by the Earth. So they'll fall back to Earth of their own accord. But while they're out there around the moon, they will have a view of the moon that no human has ever actually had, even the Apollo astronauts. So the Apollo astronauts, when they were in orbit around the moon, they got to see the far side of the moon, of course, but they got to see what was right below them. Kind of like when you're flying across the country, you can see what's below you, but you don't see the full disk of the Earth. The Artemis 2 crew will be farther away from the moon. They'll be about the size of the moon. If you hold a basketball at arm's length, that'll be about what the moon will look like to them. But because they'll be so much further away, they'll see the full disk of the moon. And that will allow their eyes and their brains to see parts of the moon that no one's ever seen before, which is going to be a very exciting thing, both for them and for us on the ground following them along.
That's awesome, and I know you alluded to this some, uh, but what are the main goals of this 10-day expedition? What are y'all hoping to learn? I know you just mentioned docking and life support stuff, but what are y'all just kind of hoping to learn on this 10-day expedition around the moon?
Well, we're hoping to learn much more about the systems that are going to enable crew to go to the moon and eventually land on the moon, and then to go on and build a lunar base, as you heard Administrator Eisenman speak about earlier this week. So it's a stepwise journey. Every time we take one of these test flights, we're testing some things and we're relying on tests that we did in previous missions. So Artemis 2 will be testing out the maneuverability of the Orion to be able to dock and mate with other systems. We'll be looking at that life support system and not just how to keep humans alive, but how to keep them thriving, right? And so, how their health behaves, how we can keep them healthy and well, especially in that small space as they go in the Orion capsule before they can transfer to bigger habitats. So those are the main things engineering wise that we're really interested in, but there's a whole host of other scientific things that are happening as well. So in terms of keeping the crew healthy and well, of course, they take things like cheek swabs and blood samples and respiratory to understand how their bodies are responding to the environment. We have things like physical sciences that where the crew actually donated their own cells prior to the mission. We have those cells and we can put them into tissue on a chip contraptions that go into more risky places, all sorts of places around the Orion capsule, places where you wouldn't want to put a human and endanger them, but we can put their cells there and understand how their cells respond. And then, of course, this suite of lunar science that we want to do, which is really understanding how the human eye and brain perceives the moon, which is what we're going to be asking crew to do when they land on the surface. Now, of course, we have tons of pictures of the moon. We have lots of robotic images of the moon. Those are things that we use to achieve actual planetary science. What we're doing here is understanding how to work with crew and how crew responds to understanding the geology, the visual landscape, how they can describe it to us. Those are all things we'll be asking them to do. So we're asking them to do real science. These are real new images that we'll be getting, but really what we're asking them to do is to test out how we do that process so that when we land on the moon, we'll already know how to do it and we can ask them to put their full focus on getting the maximum science.
That's incredible. And so, talking to me about the crew for this mission. I believe there's four: Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy. Talk about the crew for a minute. You know how hard they've trained to get here, um, their roles for this mission, and just about them in general. What can people know about this crew that is making history?
This crew is absolutely incredible. These four individuals have trained together as a team for several years. They have to do it all. They have to do everything that we're asking for them, all those disparate things that we just talked about, the engineering, the piloting, the machinery, the computer capability, geology observations, the health science. They have to do it all. So they intensively cross train across all those disciplines. They have all of us on the ground, of course, supporting them throughout the whole mission. But just their capacity to learn and understand and execute is unrivaled. It's really amazing. We've been very gratified to work with them through our lunar science campaign to get them excited about the moon itself and not just the journey they're making. And so we'll be really excited when they come back to talk to them about that experience and how they saw it, right? Of course, when you think about if you went out to a party last night and you compared your notes with a friend, you know that your eyes aren't just cameras. They don't just take in and spit back objective information. It's filtered through your brain. And so we're excited to hear how each one of those individuals experience that journey and process that lunar science information.
That's incredible. I can only imagine what they're feeling leading up to this mission. Um, so NASA just recently, as recently as this week, announced about something about a moon base. Can you talk more about that and how exactly that would be done?
Yes, the Artemis campaign, since its inception, was always intended to make a permanent presence on the moon. It's to learn to live and work in a sustainable way on another planet, to bring humanity beyond our experience of low Earth orbit onto another planet. So we're expanding our sphere of knowledge, our sphere of influence, and our economic sphere out another step. So that has always been the goal of the Artemis for accelerating the pace of hardware deliveries and launches to start building up that base. So it's getting a lot more real. It's getting very interesting in these days. Artemis 2 has always been one of our planned steps along that journey as we build out that testing, understanding some systems, then moving on to testing new systems. So we're excited to see how this mission progresses that cadence of understanding so that we can land on the moon, build out that moon base, and be able to live and thrive on another planet.
And I only have a couple more questions. To people, I was born in 1999, way after the Apollo missions. Um, Even my parents, they were born a few years after, so like to all of us that didn't get to experience the Apollo missions, this is like our own version of that. To those of us who didn't get to experience that, is there any way to like help us understand the magnitude of what's being attempted here, the history, I mean, just everything that goes into this? I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it because it's interesting to me. So I mean, um, for those that weren't around during the Apollo missions, help us understand the gravity of this. Pun intended.
That's a great question. I was also born after the Apollo mission, so you're right on. This is our generation's time to shine. But not just harkening back to Apollo. Apollo showed us that we could do deep space missions with humans. We're going to be okay. We're going to be able to send them into space and they're going to be able to step on another planet and we're going to be able to land them. And we understand the physics and the geology enough to be able to do that. We don't have to prove that again. We don't have to prove what our forebears did. We know we can do that. We've showed the world we can do that. We're going to build on that. We're going to take the next steps. And not even the next steps. Our next steps were the International Space Station. And so we've had the space station has been continuously inhabited for 25 years. People go up and down to the space station all the time. In fact, we very rarely hear about it in the news anymore because it's very routine. So we need to keep in mind that the space station is an enormous endeavor, international. We could not do it without partners. It brings together multiple nations who are united in this quest to be able to have humans continuously orbiting the Earth. And that is one of the biggest steps between Apollo and where we are now. So it's not just building on Apollo, it's actually building on space station. And you can think of those two things together, all of our experience and knowledge and understanding of how humans live off the Earth and our Apollo experience of landing on the moon. And now put those two things together. We're going to go even further. We're going to use those things to establish a sustainable presence on the lunar surface, kind of like McMurdo Station at the South Pole or any other remote outpost that we have where humans can keep going back, like a little vacation home. They can keep going there and they can keep learning more every time they do it. And it's going to get to the point, I hope, where we can look up at the moon and we can wave and we'll know that there's always someone there waving down at us.
And so my last question is, uh, again, days away from the opportunity to try and launch. Where can our viewers go? Anybody that maybe see this to watch the launch live, keep up to date with the journey, and get involved and follow this from start to finish.
Absolutely. You can go to nasa.gov/Artemis, where we have a whole bunch of resources there. You can host your own watch party for the launch. That's something fun to do. Have some friends come over, watch the launch together. You can follow along on your favorite social media platform at NASA. You can also tune into NASA TV Plus. It's online. It's also on Netflix and Paramount Plus. And you can watch there the mission start to finish. We'll have continuous coverage. There's a whole bunch of cameras, both inside and outside of the crew and the rocket. And we'll be having 2 live streams continuously throughout the whole mission. I hope you'll come along with us and watch this mission and watch our friends come back safely to the Earth at the end.
That's awesome. One more follow-up question, I promise, and we're done. But you mentioned the cameras inside, the technology that is a lot more advanced, a lot different than the Apollo missions. The access you just mentioned. I mean, is that a game changer in a way to be able to have that much access to what we all 7 billion of us here on the ground can see? I mean, is that a kind of a game changer?
I think it's a really interesting question. Of course, the Apollo missions were also transmitted live to television, and that's part of what their appeal was, is that everyone around the world could watch those live. I think the difference now is just the total data throughput is so much higher that we can see these live high definition videos, multiple camera angles, crew voices inside. And so, yeah, that really enables the ground team on the Earth, our lunar science team, all the other teams who are following along, to understand in real time what's happening. And if there's anything that needs to be changed to enable changes to happen. It's a really important capability that we have for the moon because the moon is very close. But one of the things that we're really testing for and preparing for is when humans go to Mars. We will not have that real-time capability, will not have that so much streaming. And so preparing humans to really live and work on their own, to make their own decisions and do their own troubleshooting is something that we have to do. So even though we have all of this coverage, we're really trying to get comfortable with what they're going to have to do when they're on their own at Mars.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. This has been an incredible honor for me. I'm excited. So thank you so much,
You're
and
very welcome.
I can't wait to see what happens.
Bye bye now.